statistical, mathematical fact
never has been down.
has broken every single record. There is no asset that has come close.
It's the only thing in the industry that was not touched, that was not hacked, and it never fails doing what it promised in 2009. It's never
What's
failed.
the best performing asset the world has ever seen? And you'll find out that it's Bitcoin.
Hey, Bitcoiners, surprise. Bitcoiners, traders, followers, supporters, haters. I see you. Surprise. Late night talk on Bitcoin here. I actually was up and had some free time and thought I'd experiment on sort of piping in with you at the oddest of hours, at least the oddest of hours for me. So, Diego, I see you. I know it's not the oddest of hours for you where you are in the world, but I know we're dealing with an international audience here. So it could be morning, it could be evening, it could be the wee hours of the morning, depending upon where you are in the world. Welcome. I wanted to actually, April, wow. Welcome, April. I don't know where you are in the world or what time it is for you, but surprised to see you here. Welcome. I wanted to do this experiment to see. It is actually about 2:50 a.m. in the morning in my part of the world. And I don't know how many live spaces are done during this time, but I wanted to give it a shot. I had some time. And I like to do this experiment to see if doing live spaces during certain parts of the 24-hour cycle bring in live different types of people with different cultures or what have you. Just very fascinated with things like that. But anyway, welcome, guys. Welcome. I'd like to just have you ask any questions you like during this talk here. I've got some hot tea I'm going to be taking in during our talk here. But I don't want you to feel shy about asking any questions. I'm going to try to keep monitoring them here and see what's really on your mind. But Diego, welcome. I know Diego is here we're logging in from Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken. So welcome, Vietnam. Vietnam is in the house. I don't know who else is in the house, but I know that Vietnam is in the house. I am in South Florida at the moment. And so Florida is in the house as well. And anyone who else wants to share where they are piping in from, that would be awesome as well. But, I wanted to, for those of you who are somewhat familiar with how I start off each one of my talks, I often like to start off with a theme or a monologue, just something that comes to me off the top of my head. And this time is going to be no different. And one of the things that I wanted to kick off tonight or this morning's session with is the fact that it's so clear to me that so many people still fail to understand how different Bitcoin is from anything else that they have ever been exposed to. And I think this is the line of demarcation, in a sense, that separates the vast majority of people who really get Bitcoin from the larger majority who don't. I think that the few that truly understand or have gotten the fact that Bitcoin is so alien to everything that we've ever had, they understand, they've arrived at this understanding that Bitcoin is code. That Bitcoin is actually maths. at its fundamental basis, that it is math, that math is not new. Code is based on math. So code is another word for a math in a sense. So mathematics has been with us for time immemorial. Mathematics is at the basis of all existence, of everything that we know. Mathematics really doesn't have a beginning or an end. It's the alpha and the omega in a sense. And for the first time in the human experience, we have an asset, an investment, a store of value, a currency, a money, all in one, that's literally based on maths. And because the world has never really had anything even remotely close to this, most people can't grasp it. Most people can't see it. Only a few do, at least at this particular point in Bitcoin's evolutionary process. And I think that when you sort of look for that line of demarcation that separates the group that really, truly gets Bitcoin and understands that it is the apex everything, from those who don't, I think that's where that line of demarcation is, that line that separates those two groups, as unequal as they are at this particular point, that one recognizes that it is unique in the human experience. It is different. It is something that truly the world has never had, that for the first time, we have something that humans can participate in that is not from a man, that is not controlled by a man, that can't be manipulated or even confiscated by a man, but at the same time is available to every man. And when has that ever been? And so math is available to every human being. No one can deny a human being from mathematics. No one can steal or confiscate or control for one man versus another, whether 1 + 1 = 2 or 2 × 2 = 4. And that's what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is maths. It's mathematics. And for the first time, mathematics is our money. For the first time in the entire evolutionary process of human beings, our money is math. Our currency is math. Our store of value is math. Our asset is math. And this is extraordinarily important. It's extraordinarily powerful because we have been forced to trust what has been a creation, an invention by other men. We've always had to trust other men. We've always had to trust other human beings. And trust was actually marketed as a good thing, that you were supposed to trust your partner. You're supposed to trust your business partner. You're supposed to trust your bank. You're supposed to trust the company you work for. But a trust-based system has a terrible historical record for human beings. That the trust-based system that the first phase of human experience has been forced to rely on has a horrendous record that I believe that every person can actually confidently say that everything that they have trusted in their entire experience on planet Earth has failed them in one way or another. And many of you have heard me speak about this. If you've been with me or have listened to me speak it, even from a cursory point of view, you've understood that I've always told you that I've always believed that every human being in your life has failed you in one form or another. Whether your trust in your parents have failed you in one form or another, we all feel that. There's not a human being with kids that they don't feel that my kids have failed me in some way, or my parents have failed me in some way, or my spouse has failed me in some way, or my community, my government, my politicians, my banks, my financial institutions, my money manager, my mutual funds, the stock market, my investments, every single thing is based on trust, and trust is a failed approach, because what trust implies is that you don't know. Trust only comes into existence. The need for trust only comes into existence if you don't know something. One does not have to trust whether 1 + 1 = 2. One does not have to trust whether Tuesday follows Monday. One does not have to trust whether today my name is Oliver versus yesterday. I don't have to trust that. I trust that I'm Oliver today. I think I'm Oliver today. I hope I'm Oliver today. But I'm not sure. You only trust when you don't know. But this is living from a state of unknowing, and a state of unknowing is a state of uncertainty, and a state of uncertainty is a state of weakness. I believe that Bitcoin is ushering us into a new realm, a new era of existence where trust is going to be looked at in the past as being inferior and stupid. Like, you lived during a time where you had to trust another man with your future? Really? Why would another man take care of your future? I believe that some of our grandkids, some of our kids, if you're young enough, going to be like, Dad, Mom, you trusted people with your future. You trusted people with your life savings. You trusted other men that didn't even know you. Really? I think that this is quickly becoming considered stupid. You trusted this person with your money. You trusted that they would do the right thing by you without knowing you, having other incentives. And math does not have to be trusted. Math is the concept of knowing. And Bitcoin is maths. Bitcoin removes the need for trust. A lot of people say that Bitcoin is code, but that's just another way of saying that Bitcoin is maths. And for the first time, math, something that we can know, something that we don't need to trust because we know. For the first time, math is our asset. Maths is our investment. Mathematics is our store of value. Mathematics is our currency. Mathematics is our cash. Mathematics is our money, and it's all in one. And today, because people have a hard time thinking outside of the system, they always think from the system. They have no vision. They can't see how something can be your asset, your investment, your store of value, your currency, your money, all in one, that there needs to be no separate items. That's in a trust-based system, that it needs to be in a separate item. That's in a inferior system. Well, this item can't be this, but it can be that, inferior. This item can be an asset, but it can't be my cash, inferior. This item can be my cash, but it can't be my store of value, inferior, incomplete. This item can be my store of value, but it can't be my investment, incomplete. The holistic item should be everything. The perfect item should be everything. And in Bitcoin, we have the perfect item. It can be our asset, our investment, our store of value, our currency, our money, cash. It has solved all of the inadequacies of each one of those things and combined the solutions to all of those things into one item. And this is what we truly mean by Bitcoin only. I wear the badge of a Bitcoin maximalist with pride, even though it comes from a little dorky, manipulated and used dweeb. I reclaim that term from that little dweeb. And I take it with pride. I am a Bitcoin maximalist. I am a Bitcoin only person. And I will tell you that that is coming from someone who not only manipulated the old financial system, the TradFi system, not only someone who won in the fiat denominated world more than most of you, I promise you. That is coming from someone who manipulated that system, who worked it like a freaking pro, a freaking master, and did well with it. And there are more of me coming over to this side every hour of your existence, every day, every week, every month. Bitcoin is a major step up in the human experience. That is my take. That is my view, and I'm sticking with it. I will also say this, that many today have an issue, and I dealt with this in a comment just not too long ago. Let me take a quick sip of my tea. And this is the last thing I'll say before I see if you have any questions. Please don't be shy about asking any questions. I want to take your questions. But many today have this issue with the fact that Bitcoin is not an income producing or money producing asset. And this is missing the whole freaking point, because Bitcoin is the money. So you don't really say that my dollar, I don't really regard the dollar as valid because the dollar doesn't produce a dollar. You don't really do that. And this is missing the point that Bitcoin is the money. Bitcoin is the cash, that other things should be producing Bitcoin. It's not the other way around, that Bitcoin shouldn't be producing something inferior to itself, that everything inferior should be producing Bitcoin. I trade, guys, I've been trading for 43 years straight. There are very few days in 43 years that I have not traded something in the traditional financial markets. My whole adult life, I know nothing else. But all of those years, I traded for what? For dollars. I traded not for the trade itself. I traded for dollars. I traded to get more dollars. Well, I've changed my unit of account. I trade now to get more Bitcoin. I don't say, well, I don't want more Bitcoin. I don't want Bitcoin because it doesn't have an income stream. That's dumb, because you're approaching Bitcoin wrong. everything else should be a Bitcoin stream. My trading should be producing an extra stream of Bitcoin. My business should be producing an extra stream of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the money. Bitcoin's the cash. Bitcoin is what you earn, what you make. Bitcoin is the prize. Bitcoin is what you win. It is not to say, well, I don't want Bitcoin because it doesn't produce something else. This is dumb. I've always said that Bitcoin is the ultimate financial IQ test, you know? And what raises your financial IQ is when you realize that I'm using the wrong unit to measure everything. I'm using something weak to measure when I should be using something strong to measure. Let me give you an example of this, and then I'll go to some of your questions, just in case you have them. Most of you are still somewhat shy to ask your questions, but all right, it is what it is. All right. But I'll give you an example of this. You have a son that is very interested in becoming a professional, I don't know, a professional soccer player, let's put it that way, football player, and outside of the US, soccer player in the US. And your son is 6 years old, you're starting him off on his pursuit to be really good at soccer, but you make sure that all throughout his development, that he is compared against the weakest of all. That you make sure that your 6-year-old son is in the soccer league with 3-year-olds. And then when your 6-year-old son is 9 years old, you make sure that your 9-year-old son is playing with 6-year-olds. And you ensure that you can only measure your son that wants to be the best against the weakest of all. You want to make sure that he is constantly shown as being superior, as being good, as being above average, because what you're comparing, you're going to make sure that what you're comparing your son to is weaker than your son. But if you were to ever take that 9-year-old son and compare the 9-year-old son to a 25-year-old man, there would be no comparison. If you were to take that 9-year-old son and compare that 9-year-old son that's used to playing against everyone inferior to him to a 15-year-old, no comparison. Even to a 9-year-old, no comparison. A 9-year-old who wasn't subject to being compared to the weakest of all. This is what we do when I create that analogy. This is what we do when we compare things to fiat currency like the US dollar. When you take Tesla and you compare Tesla, the asset, to the US dollar, that's like taking your 9-year-old and comparing it to a 2-year-old in soccer. The 9-year-old will always beat the 2-year-old. That's no comparison. But let's put Tesla against someone strong, like Bitcoin. Now, how does it compare? Why are we comparing our assets to the weak? Why? Why are we doing it? Why are we taking every asset, Tesla, Nvidia, the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, and you don't take your money out of this false system? Is we're going to trick you into comparing these things to the weak all the time so that you never leave the system. Because if you were to ever understand that I'm supposed to compare what I do to the strong, Bitcoin's the strong. That if I were to ever do that, I would stop comparing to the weak and I would keep my money in the system. But because Bitcoin is out of the system, no one wants you to compare to it. No one wants you to take Tesla and compare it to Bitcoin. No one wants you to take Nvidia and compare it to Bitcoin. No one wants you to take the NASDAQ and compare it to Bitcoin, the S&P 500 to compare it to Bitcoin, US Treasury to compare it to Bitcoin. No one wants you to compare outside of the system. They want you to stay comparing to inside of the system because that's the lie. That's the picture that will always show you that you're winning when you're not winning. And so when I tell you that I've always said that Bitcoin is the ultimate IQ test, it's the IQ test to understanding that there's a unit that I'm comparing everything to. Americans have this, they are so privileged that they don't even understand that everything they look at is a pair. They don't even understand that when I look at Tesla, I'm looking at a pair, Tesla and the US dollar. You see, most of the world outside of the US understands pairs. They understand they're comparing an item to a fiat currency because in much of the world, they've been forced to compare their shitcoin or their paper money printed by their government with the paper money created by the US. So they've lived a life of comparing two items, my currency compared to the US dollar. Because Americans have the one compares to, they have lived this cushy life of not comparing. And so they're soft when you're considering the price of something. And so if I compare the US stock market to the Venezuelan bolivar, it's a meteoric rise up. If I compare the US stock market to the US dollar, it's a rise up, but it's not as meteoric as comparing it to the Venezuelan bolivar. So they have two different trajectories up. One is literally vertical, and the other is up sharply, but it's not as vertical. The US dollar picture of the NASDAQ and the US dollar is up sharply, but it's not up the same way if I change the unit from the NASDAQ to the Venezuelan bolivar. The NASDAQ compared to the Venezuelan bolivar is a straight line straight up. The NASDAQ compared to the US dollar is straight up, but it's a little more slanted to the right. But when I take the NASDAQ and I change it, I change it from the Venezuelan bolivar, from the US dollar to Bitcoin, now the chart's the other way. The NASDAQ is collapsing. It's rising against the Venezuelan bolivar, straight up. It's rising against the US dollar, not as sharply, but it's still rising. But when I change it from the Venezuelan bolivar, no, not that one. US dollar, no, not that one. And I just switch it, the NASDAQ and the Bitcoin, then I see the NASDAQ is a shitcoin. But no one wants you to compare your items to Bitcoin because you will leave the system. And this is what I mean by understanding Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the ultimate financial IQ test, especially for Americans. That Bitcoin is showing how privileged and ultimately low IQ most Americans are because they have no concept of pairs. They have no concept of a unit of account. They have no concept that every price is a comparison between two things. And if you change the comparisons, you get different pictures. A lot of the world understands this. Venezuelans are more sophisticated in the currency markets than Americans. Even Argentinians today, Turkish people, Nigerian people, these people understand because they're constantly comparing their shitcoin to another shitcoin. It is only a matter of time before the world realizes that you're always supposed to compare to the strongest money. You don't compare to the weakest money because that's the liar. The liar is the weaker one. The stronger one tells the truth. And this brings us to something called Tyr's Law, which I've spoken about here a number of times. That Tyr's Law states that the good money drives out all the bad money because ultimately everyone over time gravitates toward the best money. Why? How would you not? How is that not the case? That money is not a multi-item world. Listen to me carefully with this. For some reason, well, not for some reason, for the reason that most people have no concept of the history of money. Most people don't even know what money is. They think currency is money, and it's not. They're two different things in the world. It's only now that currency is money because Bitcoin is here, but currency is different from money. But anyway, my point is that most people don't understand money. Most people work their lives for money, but have no concept of even what money is. They can't tell you what money is. They can't even tell you where it comes from, who's in control of it, and why do I wake. They can't even tell you why they wake up every single day and give their whole lives to money. They don't even know where it comes from. Like the world has been dumbed down, and this is on purpose. It is on purpose because if you don't know why you wake up every day to work, then you're a slave. And as long as we can keep you not knowing, you'll stay a slave. Right? So most people, without this lack of understanding, I almost forgot my point again. Sometimes I go too far away from the point and I forget my central theme. But my point, guys, is that, you know, this concept that money, Bitcoin can't be money because it doesn't produce money. It's just absolutely dumb because it is money. It's the ultimate money. And why is it the ultimate money? Because the ultimate money is not a man money. The ultimate money is not controlled by human beings. The ultimate money is not a money that's in the hands of someone else. Math is not in the hands of a human being. And for the first time, money is math. It's extraordinarily powerful when you get this, guys. Extraordinarily powerful. It changes your life. It changes your perspective. And this is why so many Bitcoiners who ultimately get this, they almost become religious like. And this is a turnoff for some, but so what? Freedom has always been a turnoff to the majority. Well, why should it change now? So what? People don't like the attitudes of Bitcoin maximalists. I'm starting to see this pop up more and more now. If only Bitcoiners were nicer, fuck that. That's what I say. Why? Why should we have a tolerance for bullshit? Why? When you see the truth, why should you have a tolerance for what's not the truth? Why? I make no apologies. Zero. Do you understand? If you don't like it, then let the doorknob hit you where the good Lord split you. Get out of here. Leave. I don't care. When you show me good versus evil, why should I be nice to evil? When you show me theft versus freedom, why should I be nice to what is theft, what is slavery, what is not free? I'm not going to be. I'm sorry. And if you're looking for that, like I said, there's the door. I don't believe we should be nice. I don't believe we should be welcoming. Or let me just say this. I think that, like everyone else, that like every other group, there are different types, there are different levels. I am not cut out after seeing this to be nice to you. There are some people who are cut out to deliver tough love. There are some fathers that are better at tough love. There are some fathers that are better at being more neutered men and, being like almost like their moms. All right, I'm not saying that's wrong. That's not me. And so I just think that maybe, all right, maybe it's okay having over different levels of Bitcoiners, but I'm not that one. I'm not that one to allow stupidity. When I see the bullseye, why should I not just focus on the bullseye? That's what I've done with everything in my life. Why should I waste time with what's not the bullseye? Why should I be nice to what's not the bullseye? Why should I be, oh, well, it's okay. My Oliver, what about this? No, forget that. Bullseye. But Oliver, what about the third row away from the bullseye, to use a darting analogy? But Oliver, what about the outer ring of the bullseye? No, F the outer ring of the bullseye. Bullseye. Well, Oliver, wait a minute. Okay. Well, what about the third ring from the bulls? No, forget the third ring from the bullseye. 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 Why should we be wasting time? Why should I? Well, I think that Bitcoin maximalists like that do a service at the end of the day. They do a better service than people trying to be freaking nice about it. No nonsense. I'm not nice about someone who wants to hurt my child. And when you see something hurtful, when you finally see something as hurtful, I'm not going to be nice about it. I'm sorry. Anyway, that's me, guys. I went a bit longer than I typically wanted to with that little monologue, but I talk contemporaneously off the top of my head sometimes, like, that's the way it is. I got two here. That's cool. Well, I got one after Diego's hello. William Jensen says, yesterday was 5 years in. Nice. Congratulations, man. 5 years. That is truly an accomplishment, William. Would you agree that all models are broken? That's actually a good question. And to be honest with you, no one truly knows. But I will give you my view, my opinion. I think the answer, and this is not a cop out, but I think the answer is yes and no. I think that, first of all, when it comes to Bitcoin, all of your traditional models are broken. That I started off our talk tonight by saying that Bitcoin is so alien, so different that you can't apply anything you know to it. But at the same time, it's math. So it has this extreme element of certainty. But that even that level of certainty that you can apply to it because it's maths at the end of the day, that certainty is alien because we've never had something with that level of certainty. So the fact that it's certain makes it alien. We've never had certain. We've never had, okay, every 4 years there's a halving. We've never had certain like there will only be ever 21 million. We've never had that ever in the history of the world. We've never had, okay, the difficulty rate adjustment is every 21,400, every 2140 blocks. We've never had that. Or is it 2016 blocks? I can't remember the numbers, but you get what I'm saying. There's a difficulty adjustment every 2,000 plus blocks. There's a halving every 400,000 blocks. So whatever the number is, every 4 years, roughly, more or less. All the way to 2,140, there will never be more than 21 million. We've never had certainty like this in anything. We've had to trust someone's word. We have to trust another man that we don't even know. Every asset, you've had to trust another man. Every investment, you've had to trust another man or a group of men that you don't even know. Now, the ETFs are trying to take Bitcoin, and I'm not saying they're not positive in a way, but they're not for us. They're trying to take Bitcoin and wrap it in the trust vehicle. They're trying to take a trustless item and put it inside of a trust. Trust me, bro. I'm going to take what shouldn't be, what eliminates the need for trust. But since I don't want to let go of the trust system, I'm going to put this thing inside of my trust system so that you still have to trust me. Trust me, bro. I got the Bitcoin for you. Trust me, bro. They still are trying to hold on. Now, I just think that's the ultimate Trojan horse. It's necessary. I think it's a net positive. Don't get me wrong, but it's not for you. Not on my watch. I am not going to let you do that, except in certain situations. Right? You can't get your 401k plan outside into real Bitcoin, then it's the next best thing. You know what I'm saying? It has its purposes. But your question, William, is a good one because you're like, now that the ETFs are here, now that there's a permanent institutional bid for Bitcoin, are models from even Bitcoin's past broken? And I think that's what you're getting at. And that's the part that's hard to say. All I can say is that don't confuse Bitcoin's US dollar price with Bitcoin. They are two mutually exclusive. They're very different things. You see, nothing changes Bitcoin's halvings every 4 years. Nothing changes the fact that it's 21. There will only ever be 21 million. Nothing changes its difficulty rate every 2,000 plus blocks. Nothing changes the fact that on average, every 10 minutes, there's a new block. Nothing changes the fact that in April, we're going from, 400, we're going from 900 Bitcoin on average being printed or being issued per day to 350 issue or 450 issued per day. That's Bitcoin. Do you understand? Bitcoin is different from the US denominated price, which can fluctuate. Bitcoin doesn't fluctuate. Bitcoin doesn't change. Bitcoin isn't fickle. Bitcoin can't be moved or manipulated or altered in any way. So understand the difference between the price, which is basically the US dollar's opinion of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin itself. Bitcoin itself can't be changed. So in that sense, Bitcoin's basic existence or its model is never broken or altered. Now, we switch our attention to, well, Oliver, let's talk about the US dollar denominated price patterns based on what Bitcoin is. Are those models broken today? Possibly, or altered or changed? Is the statistical anomalies of Bitcoin's US dollar to price going to alter over time? I think so. So here's where I think that some of those changes happen regarding the US dollar denominated price for Bitcoin. I think that while these things don't change Bitcoin's 4-year cycle. So I think that the 4-year cycle stay where there's 3 years up, 1 year down, 3 years up, 1 year down. I don't think that changes. Not for a while anyway. But I do believe that the 1 year down will probably, and again, we're speculating on the future, will be more shallow. So right now, Bitcoin on average drops about just a little shy of 80%. Every one of those 1 year down, I think that's shallower and shallower and shallower and shallower, which has been happening without these new dynamics in place. So I think it shallows even at a more dramatic rate. So instead of our last decline came close to 78% down from the high, I think maybe the next one is, if we get to 60%, maybe that's surprising. And then the next one may be shallower and shallower and shallower. So I think the declines get shallower. And I think the period of a year gets shorter. So typically throughout Bitcoin's history, if you study history, that decline is about 12 to 16 months from high to low. I think we go to 8 months, maybe 6, and maybe even shorter over time. Just because you're going to have a growing global demand, a constant institutional bid, which Bitcoin has never had. Bitcoin's never had demand. Do you understand? You can't call half of 1% of the world's population has Bitcoin as demand. How can you call half of 1% of the entire world having it as demand? It never had demand. Now it has demand. And the demand is just starting. And demand in an adopted thing goes on forever. People, understand me. Demand for Bitcoin will only increase forever. Do you understand what I mean forever? I'm not being facetious when I say that the demand will rise for Bitcoin forever. When I say forever, I'm not even talking about forever as far as your life. I'm talking about beyond your life, long after you're gone, I'm gone, long after your kid's gone. the demand for Bitcoin will be forever. Now, some of you, that might strike you as being strange, but it's not if you know history, if you know adoption cycles. Guys, today, the commercial airline industry started more or less at the beginning of the 1900s. That's how many years ago? 120 years? And in 120 years, only one in every 4 human beings have ever been on a plane. Do you understand that the demand for plane travel is not even close to even a third of the way? It's 120 years. 1 in every 4 human beings have been on a plane. Do you understand the growth that's ahead of plane riding from a human being perspective? And the population's growing. Despite what you hear, go look it up. The estimated population for planet Earth, we're at 8 billion now. The estimated population for 2050 is 10 billion. It's growing. So this right now, only 1 in 4 people have ever been on a plane. Do you understand the growth that's ahead of planes? It's 120 years. 124 years. Electricity. You think every person on planet Earth has electricity? I bet you know people that don't have their lights on right now. I forgot to pay my bill. Guys, the demand for electricity. Do you know how old electricity is? Home computers? Do you know how many people in the world don't have access to a home computer? Guys, look, the internet, cars. Do you know how many human beings don't have a car? Guys, you understand. One could have said in the early 1900s that airplane travel will be adopted forever. Car travel will be adopted forever. Electricity travel will be adopted forever. Internet access will be adopted forever. Personal computers will be adopted forever. Bitcoin's going to be adopted forever. It's never going to stop. Every few seconds, a new Bitcoiner is born. Forever. So understand that now that you have an institutional bid, this is very, very important because it's not normal adoption. So what I mean by that is that it brings people not adopting. It creates non-adopters into adopters. And that's the power of this institutional bid. That's why I said that the ETFs are a net positive, because they bring the mindless into being a buyer, a holder, a hodler of Bitcoin. The people who just say, all right, look, you're recommending what? 2% allocation. Okay, do it. Like they might not even know what it is. They're like, you're my advisor. You're saying, okay, like if I add 2% Bitcoin to my mix of things, I've got this equities, I've got this bonds, I've got this, real estate, I've got this cash, I've got this US treasuries, and you're saying, okay, 2% here. Okay, just do it. It brings an adoption that would take many, many, many more decades, and it speeds it up. And that's the power of this. The mindless 401k investors, for those of you who are American and you understand what that is, that it doesn't matter if the market's down 60%, 20%, 30%. It's just this amount comes out of my paycheck and this percentage goes into the Bitcoin ETF. It's like, it doesn't change their life going to Outback Steakhouse on Saturday night. They don't think about it that way. So it's very powerful in that respect. And because of that power, because of that mindlessness that comes with that institutional bid, you could have the US dollar denominated cycles affected where the downward drops are not strong anymore. And they're shorter in duration. We can see this by looking at what happened when gold, the first gold ETF, was approved in the United States in late 2004. I participated in it in January of 2005 in a big way. And you just saw an 8-year unprecedented run to the upside. Not even the financial crash of 2008. It caused a little hiccup in the gold ETF. I mean, it did drop. In a crisis, everything drops, but it was a lot more shallow than everything else. And if you look at it, if you zoom out, you realize it didn't really drop at all. And I think that because Bitcoin is much more superior, that you're going to see not only 8 years, you're going to see far greater than an 8-year unprecedented run, and it's going to be more violent to the upside. I just think that pullbacks now, that if you don't, pullbacks have always been viable, but they've been best viable after 60% down. So if you started historically from a 60% down, because you know, historically it's an 80, 85% down, but you have to start before that. You can't start at 80%. You got to start near the bottom. So if you just waited for Bitcoin to drop 60% down, then started DCAing, man, you're a huge winner. I'll just wait for 60% down and just start DCAing every single week. You just killed everyone on planet Earth with that strategy, right? Because this average is 80% down, 80, 85%. But if you start at 80%, it'll start going up on you really fast. You can't. You got to always start before. Well, I think that starting before is going to be now we have to start after 30% down. You understand? And then after 20% down, I think those dips just become shallower and shorter in duration. Anyway, that's my take, guys. All right. William I just bought some more. Whoa. Nice. I like that. William just bought some more Bitcoin. I love that. Yeah. John says, yeah, adopted forever and finite, forever and finite, which means that some people, John, it's interesting that you say that, because some people have asked me, say, Oliver, but how can something finite constantly be desired and acquired because it's finite? Like, won't people run out of it? No. It doesn't take something to be infinite to be infinitely acquired. You just keep dividing it. So imagine a pizza where at first the pizza is not divided at all. It's just one giant circle. And someone big just devours it. And then you're like, okay, well, wait a minute. There's two people now. So we divide the pizza in two pieces, and two big people devour each piece. Oh, wait a minute. Now there's four. You divide it in four pieces. Now there's four people that can partake in the pizza. And you just keep dividing and dividing and dividing. And you can infinitely divide. Do you understand? That there's no end to dividing. There's no end to dividing 21 million. So we have the Satoshi, which is 1/100 millionth of a single Bitcoin, but it can be, Bitcoin is programmable money. It can be programmed to be 100 millionth of a Satoshi. And now more people can participate in the smaller amounts, right? So I'm always saying this, Bitcoin will forever be available to every human being. It just won't be buyable by every human being. We are in that unique period where people are going to marvel and read about us and study about us. There was a group of human beings that lived. Can you imagine this? They lived when people sold it to them for other man's money. Like, that's like someone, that's like, we marvel today at, in the United States, at least the history that we're taught, we don't even know if this is really verified, but it's the one we have, right? Where Native Indians gave up Manhattan for a pig and a blanket, or for the equivalent of $200, really? The whole Manhattan, they gave $200. Like, we see that as like, oh my God, that's how people are going to be like, people gave you dollars for this? Like, that doesn't even exist anymore. But people gave that to you? People gave you euro for this? Seriously? Like, that world is disappearing where the weak, we can still get the strong for the weak. Like, people are still that dumb right now, right? People are still that unaware that we can get the strong in exchange for giving them the weak. We can give them what we know is going to be lower for what we know is going to be higher. How long do you think that is going to exist, people? I struggle here to get people, to get you to understand this. But in reality, we should be happy that people still don't understand this, because as long as you work and you're forced to earn the weak, and you can give someone else the weak item, and they don't know what they have, and they can give you the strong item for the weak, that's a trade that you should make every single time forever until it doesn't exist. There are people who ask me, Oliver, so when Bitcoin reaches, $1 million USD, what are you going to buy? And I tell them all the time, the dip. They're like, what? They don't get it. I'm going to buy the dip. What are you talking about? As long as someone is willing to give me something that's guaranteed to go down in purchasing power, I'm taking that trade. Do you understand? There's no price at which that's not smart. There's no price at $1 million US. You're going to give me the dollar. You're going to accept the dollar for your Bitcoin? I will take that at $1 million. I will do that trade no matter what the price is, because I know the future. I know a year that dollar's lower. So you have the bad side of the trade. I don't have the bad side of the trade. I know 4 years from now, you're debased. I'm not. So I don't care. There is no, there are people today that say, well, Oliver, at what point should I stop buying Bitcoin? I'm like, you don't get it. First of all, you're not buying Bitcoin. You're changing the weak for the strong. So when is it smart to stop changing the weak for the strong? Never. And you do it until everyone wakes up and no one wants to give you the strong for the weak that you have. But as long as there's someone out there who's willing to take something that's guaranteed to go down in exchange for something that's guaranteed mathematically to go up, you make that trade. You can't be wrong with this, people. Not if you step back. Not if you look at it from 4-year points. The best way now is to look at Bitcoin as a savings technology. You give 4 years to your college and you start off negative. You go into debt. You put your kids in university for 4 years and they come out negative. They don't even come out break even. They come out negative, mired in debt that they may never be able to pay off forever in their entire lives. And you think that's a good investment. You won't give Bitcoin 4 years, who's mathematically shown you that you can change, you will change your life if you give it 4 years. And it has never failed. But you'll give your money to another man who says, I'll educate your kids and I'll make sure that they're negative by $100, $200, $300,000 and then send them on their way. Just maybe another man will give them a job instead of maybe considering put that in Bitcoin and let Bitcoin start them off 4 years from now at a plus. And give that to them and say, all right, now just figure out what you want to do with your life. This is yours. Bitcoin's going to change all of that. I'm telling you. You're going to see it unfold in front of your eyes. Why? Tyr's law. Good money drives out the weak. It has happened throughout history every single time. This is what I forgot when I was trying to grab my thought earlier. And the Tyr's law comment made me bring it back. I was saying at the time that money is a one winner take all system. I need all of you to understand this, that people have gotten confused about a world where there are multiple different monies. No, it has never worked. Money does not operate in a system where it's a money. There's multiple different types of money. This is where shitcoins come in. Well, why is there only Bitcoin? Why can't there be this and that? No. There can be different companies that work for money, but there can't be different monies. And what I'm saying is that there can be for periods, but it always gravitates to one. Always. And when I tell people this, they say, well, Oliver, what about gold and silver? Gold and silver. What about what's the term? What was the era called? Anyway, the era where metals, there were multiple metals, like there's gold and there's silver, and they're both money at the same time. But these periods of time where there were multiple monies, they existed temporarily because the best money available had a flaw. So the reason why silver, even after gold came on the scene, was still used was because it was still very difficult to divide gold enough for everyday use. So it had a flaw. What was this flaw? It wasn't very divisible. that the smallest unit of gold, or even a coin, was still way too much to use in my everyday life for milk and eggs and shoes for the baby. You understand? So because goals imperfection, something else had to serve as a filler. But when you have no flaws in the money, there is no other money that can survive. Do you understand this? Do you understand that Bitcoin solved every flaw in every form of money that existed before it? That gold wasn't divisible, therefore it needed silver. Gold wasn't very transportable, therefore it needed the US dollar and other fiat currencies. So, but when you solve all of that, it doesn't need anything. There is nothing. Bitcoin has dotted every single I, has crossed every single T. It is infinitely divisible. It is instantly transferable to anyone on Earth and even outside of Earth. If they've got a receive address from planet Mars, is fine. It's instantly transferable. It's transferable across space. It doesn't degrade. It can't be stolen or confiscated. It's infinitely divisible. Every quality has been made freaking perfect, which means that based on Tyr's law, please look it up. I'm not creating these things that I'm telling you about. These are laws. Look up Tyr's law. And you will find that when a money is good, it drives out all of bad money. And when a money is perfect, there is nothing that can survive. Nothing that claims to be money can survive when a money is perfect. And therefore, everything that you consider money outside of Bitcoin will die based on Tyr's law. It's just a matter of time, not a matter of when. It's a matter of time. Why would someone who recognizes the good versus the bad say, I'm going to keep the bad? It's impossible. You don't do that. You always get rid of the bad in exchange for the good. And this is what drives out the bad. And over time, the Olivers of the world that realize, whoa, Bitcoin's the good money, they're created every minute of the day. You were created. Some of you listening to me now, you realize Bitcoin's the superior thing, and you're moving the weak into the Bitcoin. Some of you've got your cold wallets, you're storing your seed phrases on or whatever. What do you think you're doing? You're driving out the weak and you're hoarding the strong. That's what drives out the weak. You're moving, you're transmuting the weak into the strong. And as more of Oliver Velez's, as more of, let me get some of your names. Kinu, more Kinus are going to be created every minute. More Hardy Cases, more Johns, more Hashes, more Captain Cashes. You understand? You guys are being created every hour of existence. It's growing. And this is driving the weak money out. First, gradually. And then ever so suddenly, when you see this thing, guys, you can't ever unsee it. I want you to realize that. When you see it, you can never unsee it. All right. William just keeps buying Bitcoin. I love it. He just bought again. Uh, the Financial Secret is asking Oliver, what do you think of the miners? Do you think it's worth buying and holding their stocks long term and eventually putting earnings into Bitcoin? You know, I get this question often, and I have to be honest with you and tell you that my traders and I, we do play the miners. We had huge scores in the miners. As a matter of fact, I'll be very honest with you. I'll let you know. We piled into the miners in November of 2022. And what I'm thinking about doing is actually taking a segment of my private talk with my guys and just sharing it here with you. Going all the way back to that November talk, we piled into the miners. And so we do play them. Now, let me just say this. The majority of people should not play them. The slightly more sophisticated can. And I will say that those who do feel that they're sophisticated enough to play them, they should understand that Bitcoin miners are not long-term plays, that they are cyclical plays to add to your Bitcoin overall savings approach. The Bitcoin itself should not be traded, but miners can. Bitcoin itself should not be traded, but MicroStrategy can. Bitcoin itself should be traded, but options on the ETFs can be traded. These are the things that we delve into, the slightly more sophisticated things to add more juice to our overall Bitcoin strategy, to add intelligent leverage to our overall play. That's not for me to share here. My audience here is more general, less sophisticated, that's not to slight anyone here, but I can't qualify who I'm talking to here. So I have to assume that it's more general in nature. And so these are things that I will only go into in detail with my internal people. And yes, we do use the miners. But I will tell you that 95% of the people on earth should not even be thinking about that. And it's still going to be okay. Can you do a little bit better? Of course you can. But the majority of people will fuck it up. They're not sophisticated enough. They don't know. They don't know that miners, you're not supposed to hold miners like you hold Bitcoin. It's stupid. That you can use them for hedging purposes. You can use them to add some extra juice to your Bitcoin stack. That they are cyclical plays. They're not long-term plays. Same thing with options. Same thing with adding an income stream to your Bitcoin through options and put selling in a bull market and covered call selling, covered call strategies at a certain percentage, off the bear market low and so forth and so on. These are strategies for professionals. The majority of people are not professionals. And so the majority of people should just DCA and do what Bitcoin, what British Hodl says, DCA or buy it and DCA. Shut up and get fabulously wealthy. It is still going to be better than what 99% of the people have options without the juice. Everything else is just juice for Everything else is just more juice. That's the point I'm trying to make here. When you ask me, well, what about, options? That's juice. What about MicroStrategy? Juice. What about the miners? Juice. It's like adding, all right, you want to turbocharge a little bit? Okay, but you got to be careful because most people will wind up with less Bitcoin because they don't know what they're doing. And so most people shouldn't know. Bottom line is most people should leave that alone and they will wind up ahead if they just buy Bitcoin, DCA, shut up, have some patience, and get fabulously wealthy. That's what most Bitcoin should do. That's what most Bitcoiners should be doing. What else here? Apart from current investment, a portion of my paycheck goes to Bitcoin until I retire. That's just, to me, I mean, it's very difficult to get people to this point where they can see Bitcoin as the ultimate thing. That the majority of people are still at the place where they see Bitcoin as an alternative thing. And this is going to change, but it's backwards. Everything is the alternative to Bitcoin today, guys. You shouldn't be like, in my opinion, you shouldn't be like, aside from everything, I put a little in Bitcoin. That's backwards. Now, maybe if you're just want to have fun, aside from Bitcoin, I dabble in this. That's the way it should be. Like, guys, what do you don't dabble in number one? Like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, I'm going to put my main thing in what's not number one, and I'm going to dabble in number one. That doesn't even make sense. Bitcoin is the number one thing out of everything that has ever existed by orders of magnitude. Even if you cut it in half, orders of magnitude. Even if you cut it by 90%, orders of magnitude. This is why you have some of the biggest money managers in the world today that control the vast majority of the world's wealth, telling you if you put 1 or 2%, you're going to kill everything. Think about what that means. That if 1 or 2% adding a little salt, sprinkle of Bitcoin salt on everything you do kills everything, then it really shouldn't be 1 to 2%, then, should it? They're just saying it to get you in the door. They understand. We got the Bitcoin, we got the BlackRock real report behind the scenes telling their best people, their wealthiest clients, 85% Bitcoin. They weren't telling their best clients 1 to 2%. They weren't telling them that. They were saying 85%. But that's only for their best, more sophisticated people. That's what you should be. For Christ's sakes, you listen to me every day. You should be there already. Of course, I'm supposed to say this is not financial advice, right? I don't know who you are. I don't know what your circumstances are, but I'm just saying, just look harder, study harder, stack harder. As your Bitcoin IQ goes higher, your percentage goes higher. It stops being a freaking alternative. In fact, it's the US dollar that starts being the freaking alternative. You start to feel unsafe about holding dollars. But still today, most people would never fault you for saying, I'm going to an all cash position. I'm a little uncertain about this market environment. And no one would fault you for that. I'm stepping to the sidelines in the US dollars right now. I'm out of the market and nobody would fault you. That's smart to them. But if you were like, you know what, I don't trust anything. I'm going to the sidelines. I'm putting everything in Bitcoin right now. I'm not doing anything. There's no miners, there's no anything. I just feel I feel I need to be safe now. Everything's in Bitcoin. Like they wouldn't see that as safe. But at the end of the day, that's the safe position. I'm not talking about what you need to pay your mortgage or your put gas in your car with. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about what you don't need. That's the safest. That's the safest location. Self-custody Bitcoin is the safest location in the world. There is no network safer than the Bitcoin network. This is already established. It's facts. There is no other place where another man can't touch your shit. That's Bitcoin. That another man can't take it without your permission. That's Bitcoin. It can't be stolen, can't be manipulated, can't be debased, can't be made less of. Like there's only one spot in the entire existence of the universe that's Bitcoin. So it has to be the safest spot for your hard life work that you don't need to fill your gas tank up with tomorrow. I'm not talking about that portion of your life. I'm talking about the portion of your life that you don't really need to touch for the next 5 years. That's the safest place for it. And there is no past that you can point to that proves that wrong. You can't point to that being wrong. You don't have numbers on your side. You don't have history on your side as a naysayer to that. You don't have anything to hang on to refute my statement that that's the safest place. You have nothing except ignorance. No one can tell me Bitcoin's not the safest place. You have nothing to prove that. You have zero proof. All the proof is on my side. All the numbers are on my side. The entire past is on my side. All of history is on my side. Every single metric is on my side, backing my statement up that Bitcoin's the safest place to be. You have nothing to back up that it's not. Zero. You just have your feelings. It's all based on ignorance because you haven't done the work. You haven't investigated. You haven't looked. That's all. All right, guys. I love it, though. I'm surprised. So many of you are here. Any more things here? Yeah, that's right. Bainter says trading Bitcoin is immoral. I agree. I think it is immoral. Like, why would you trade freedom? Oh, wait a minute. Oliver, I think that um, I was a slave. I am now free. But I think this freedom thing is a little overbought. It's up against resistance, and the RSI is starting to tilt downward, and the stochastics is overbought. And when I connect this dot on the chart of freedom and I connect it to another dot, and draw my line like I'm freaking 3 years old, and it goes over here, I can see that. Like that's stupid. That's not only dumb, it is immoral. How can freedom, which Bitcoin is, it frees you from this freaking clown world, this money that someone painted pictures on and forced you to give your whole life for. It frees you from that. How can that be overbought? How can it be a time to leave freedom and go back to slavery? That is immoral. And every single person teaching that, every single person here on Bitcoin Twitter or on YouTube or selling a course telling you to trade freedom, to trade Bitcoin, and now it's time to short freedom, short Bitcoin, they are a fucking criminal, as far as I'm concerned. And yes, their heart might not be criminal, but ignorance at the highest level, stupidity, can be a crime too. It can be a crime to be too dumb. Oh, yes. And these people are committing that crime. They are so dumb, they're going to prevent thousands, if not tens of thousands of people from missing out on the biggest wealth change in the history of human mankind, the biggest generational wealth opportunity of their lives, because they're drawing freaking stupid lines on a chart. It burns me up. Burns me up. All right, guys, listen, enjoy the rest of your morning, your evening, your afternoon, wherever you're on the world. I really appreciate all of you showing up here. How many people do I have here? Whoa, not bad for this time. Anyway, thank you for showing up, guys. Remember that all of these live talks do wind up on my Bitcoin podcast called Bitcoin Unleashed. Look for that. Spotify, Fountain app, YouTube, Google, Apple, all over the place. Look for that if you're interested in any of my former talks. My Americans, enjoy your holiday weekend. Markets open on Tuesday. We'll be back at the trading game on Tuesday. But you know what to do. Go to work. Stack harder. And I'll talk to you later. Ciao for now. Boom. My name is Oliver Velez, and I am your 13%er Bitcoiner. Be safe out there, and until next time. Boom!